Hi, let's do a February TBR. Hi, I'm Colleen Delaney. If you're new here, I talk about books and writing. In the description, I always put a link to sign up for my newsletter and for some of the titles I've written. If you like all things book and writing related, you might like this channel, so subscribe and hang out. Today I'm gonna do my February TBR, which is gonna be a little romance heavy, but not entirely romance. And that makes sense because it is February. So I have my books section kind of organized. First, I'm going to talk about all the arcs that I have, which are advanced readers copies I get in exchange for honest reviews. Then I'm going to talk about the physical copy romance / backlist books I have. And lastly, I'm going to talk about what I have to read from Book of the Month. I have my computer here just to help me out with the arcs I have because I have quite a few and I don't want to forget any of them. So the first arc that I know I'm 100% going to read is I'll Conjure For You by Cherish Reed. This is going to be my first read of February. It is the second book in her paranormal series, which is called The Beck Sister Hauntings. I loved the first book. They are a little spooky, but I wouldn't say like horror. They're more like a little scary romance. So the main character in this one is Helen, who we met in the first book. So I'm excited she's getting her story. She's currently training to be a witch and also running her late grandma's bed and breakfast, which was the setting of the first story. She also has ADHD and goes into the woods one night to practice some sort of witchcraft, and a spell is gonna go completely wrong. So Everett, this man who has been living in Alaska but comes back home now to work at his dad's hardware store, has had a crush on her forever and doesn't really know how to approach her. And then she casts the spell, and I think it's gonna be like something like a sex spell. And then he can talk to her, and it's gonna be about their relationship, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm sure there'll be some spooky times in the woods and some hauntings and maybe demons and stuff like that to make it really fun. You don't have to have a bland February romance. You can throw some spooky season stuff in there. The next arc I have is The Duchess by Sophie Jordan, which is book 2 in the Scandalous Ladies of London. I read the first one, which was called The Countess. I can't remember what month it was, but it was at some point in 2023, towards the beginning of the year. This is a little different than Sophie Jordan's previous romance series. I would compare it to the Bridgerton TV show because you get multiple people's point of views and you're like constantly introducing new characters and like in their head. So you don't have that like set to narrators like you do in her other series. And this one, our main character is Valencia, and she is the Dowager Duchess of Dedham. And her late husband, she couldn't stand. She didn't like him at all. The new Duke is, I think, one of his like distant relatives. He's Welsh. His name is Rain, Rhain. And she likes him. She likes his accent. She likes how different he is from her husband. And it says also that he has 6 wild unwed sisters, which sounds fun. She has no money, so she needs him to support her in London, and they decide to strike a bargain. Valencia will take care of his sisters and get them like in good society and get them all betrothed. And in return, he'll take care of her financially, but give her independence at the same time. But I'm gonna guess that that's not exactly how this relationship's gonna go. It sounds like a lot of fun. It reminds me a little bit of, I'm gonna forget the name of it. It's Elisa Claypass. And the hero is Zachary Bronson, and I never remember the name, even though I love that one so much. I'll put the cover right here. The next arc I have is Hunt on Dark Waters by Katie Robert. It's the first book in the Crimson Sails series. It's about Evelyn, who's a witch, and she has really poor impulse control. And then she meets Bowen, who I think is a pirate, and she like goes through a portal and ends up with him. I think the only reason I've been like not reading this one is because the last Katie Robert book I read, I didn't like that much. It was in the Dark Olympus series. I can't even remember what it was called right now, but it was the Hephaestus, Aphrodite, Adonis, one other person whose name is not in my brain anymore. You can tell that one didn't really stick with me. So I got this one before I read that one, and now I've been a little bit like off her as a writer, but I think I'll get to it this month. And then I have 2 more arcs that are like my very maybes getting to this month. I think I'll probably not read them this month. I'll probably read them later in the spring, which is so exciting to say because after this month, March is not really spring here, but I count it, will be in the spring. One is Summer in Skagway by Kate Regenery. And I picked that entirely because I have been to Skagway in Alaska and it's very beautiful there. But here's a quick blurb. When Tanner Stewart learns his crazy ex is returning for a summer in Skagway, he places an ad in the Odds Are Good magazine looking for someone to pose as his fiancée for the summer. Enter McKenna Cabot, a commitment-phobic college professor from Seattle, caring for her aging grandmother. The promise of seasonal money is too good to pass up, so she heads north only to fall head over heels for a tall, blonde, handsome Tanner. But are their feelings strong enough to last when the summer is over? That seems like a fun summer fling that turns into a summer forever romance. And then lastly, I have Havoc Under the Hunter's Moon by Susanna Storm. This is the second book in the Black Rock Guardian series. I have not read the first. This is about wolf shifters, and you know I love wolf shifters and maybe coyote shifters, and so I don't think I'm going to read that one this month, but just keep it in mind in case I do. Okay, so now those are all my arcs. Let's move on to my physical copy books that I have. I didn't bring down all my romance TBR in physical copy because I have a lot, and I keep my TBR upstairs next to my bed, and I didn't want to carry them all down because I know a lot of those I'm not going to get to this month. So I picked the ones I'm most likely going to read this month. The first is Rebel by Beverly Jenkins, and I was just kind of looking, I have the Sophie Jordan historical, but I don't have a lot of historical romance on this list. And I like historical romance a lot. So I thought this might be a good month to read this one. This is about Valinda, who is a teacher in like Louisiana. I can't remember if she's in New Orleans. I think she's near New Orleans, maybe in New Orleans. In New Orleans, just seen on the back of the book. And her school gets like destroyed by a bunch of thugs, and then she's saved by Captain Drake Levesque. I know the Levesque family is like a big overarching group in the universe of Beverly Jenkins. And he's an architect, and I'm assuming that they're gonna fall in love in historical New Orleans, which sounds like quite a bit of fun. And I already have a bookmark in it and ready to go. I always do that when I know I really want to read a book. I put a bookmark in it so it's just there. Next I have Broken Bonds by Jay Bree. I've had this for a long time and I just have not picked it up. I also already have a bookmark in this one. This I know is supposed to be a dark romance. Yeah, I don't really know about it other than there's like people who are bonded to each other. It's fantasy. We'll see if I actually start it this month. I don't know. I bought it like last May, I think, thinking I would read it very soon, and I just have not picked it up. Maybe this is the month. Next, I have Get a Life, Chloe Brown by Talia Hibbert. Again, I've had this for a long time and wanted to read it for a long time and just haven't done it. And I don't know why, because I haven't heard anything but like really good stuff about this series. And I feel like I should just read it because then I might want to get the next two. This is about Chloe Brown I think she has like a brush with death. And then she decides she's going to like reframe her life completely. So on the back, it says the things she puts on her list of what she's going to do is enjoy a drunken night out, ride a motorcycle, go camping, have meaningless but thoroughly enjoyable sex, travel the world with nothing but hand luggage, and do something bad. And then she's going to meet Red Morgan, who's a handyman who has a motorcycle and I assume is good at sex because they're probably going to fall in love, and that's on her list. So yeah, that sounds like a fun contemporary to get into. And then lastly, for my physical copy books that aren't book of the month, I did pick a non-romance because I thought after Valentine's Day, I don't know if I'm going to want to continue reading a ton of romance. I mean, I love romance, but I don't know if I'm going to want to spice things up by unspicing them for the second half of February. So I put Nantucket Nights by Ellen Hildebrand on here. This one is a little bit more like, it's not romance, it's contemporary fiction. And here's your blurb. For 20 years, Kayla, Antoinette, and Val have performed their special summer ritual. Once a year, the old friends put aside their separate daily lives to drink champagne, swap stories, and swim naked under the Nantucket stars. But on one of those bonding nights, one of the trio swims out from shore and doesn't return. And the rest of the story is about how the death of their friend affects every corner of their life and how they change because of it. I thought that sounded kind of good. Also, it's very short. It's 230 pages, so sometimes it's nice to have a pretty short book on your list. So now let's talk about book of the month. So I came into January with 2 unread book of the month books, at least, from last year. Yeah, 2 that I wanted to get read before I did my wrap up of 2023 book of the month picks. And they were Inkblood Sister Scribe, which I got in October, but was like a summer pick at some point. I can't remember what month, maybe May. And then Divine Rivals, which was a backlist that I had picked up. And so I read both of those books this month, but I also picked 3 books from Book of the Month for January. And I'm hoping one of them is going to be on my January wrap up, but 3 definitely aren't. So going into my February month. I've got Northwoods by Amy Peace. Now I'm on page 48 of this, and it's January 29th, and it's a 270 some page book. I want to finish this, okay? I have 3 days. I'm not crazy busy for the next 3 days, so theoretically I could finish this book in the next 3 days. If not, I'm gonna finish it on like February 1st or 2nd. But so that's my first one. This is it's classified as a crime fiction, which so far to me it's reading like a mystery more than a thriller, but we'll see. I'm not even on page 50 yet, so I don't know if it's gonna get more thriller vibes. But it's about a small town in northern Wisconsin that's like a tourist town, and a teenager is found murdered. And it's about the police department who are investigating it. Oddly, I'm really enjoying it because there are a lot of like Wisconsin landmarks and stuff, and like places that are named that I'm familiar with. There's this area in the Northwoods of Wisconsin that I really like going on vacation. I've only been there a few times, but my husband and I went for the last time right before we had our first baby. And so that's like what I'm picturing when I'm reading this. I love the Northwoods of Wisconsin, and I was a little worried that it was gonna sway me from wanting to visit again, but it's not. But so I'm enjoying that. So I think I'm gonna finish this in January, but I might not. It might be my first read of February. I'm definitely gonna read This Spells Love by Kate Robb in February because it is a fantasy romance. And this was this was one of the picks for November, but I got it as an add-on in January. I put it on my TBR. I can't remember what I picked in November. My brain just doesn't hold on to any information anymore. But this is about Gemma, who is 28, gets dumped by her long-term boyfriend, gets drunk with her sister, her kooky aunt, and her best friend, and decides to perform a love cleansing spell to erase her ex from her memory. They follow all the instructions, and she shares a kiss with like her platonic best friend, Dax. She wakes up the next morning and realizes that her spell worked really well, and that it's like she never dated her ex, and she doesn't recognize any part of her life, and her best friend Dax has no idea who she is. So I'm assuming she's gonna fall in love with Dax. This just seemed like a fun, rom-com-y, but with like the witchiness aspect, which I like. And I am trying to read, because I have a witchy romance coming out in May. I'm trying to read like all the new witchy romances that are coming out, just to see how my book compares and contrasts. I think this one will be more of a contrast. But also, it's good to have comps, and it's good to be able to say, if you like This Spells Love and Pillars of the Earth, which people are going to be like, what do you mean Pillars of the Earth? But you'll get it when my book comes out. You might like my book. But so that is a big reason why I am going to read this month. And then my last book of the month that I currently have and haven't read is The Fury by Alex Michaelides. I really loved his first two books, The Silent Patient and The Maidens. This is about a group of friends who go to a Greek island, and I'm assuming some of them get murdered because it's an Alex Michaelides book. I think, this one's also not that long, 295 pages. I think I'm going to read this book like after Valentine's Day, because I know his books, I read them really fast. I usually will and maybe I'll like vlog it. I don't know. Maybe I'll vlog a couple of these books. But I usually read his books in like 2 days. So I'll probably pick a time where I don't have a lot going on in the middle of the month and just binge read this as quickly as I can. But I want to be better about staying on top of my book of the month picks. And that leads us to February picks for book of the month. I'm filming this on January 29th, so the picks are not out yet. I did do a video about what I thought the picks were going to be. And so, but that's anyone's guess if I'm correct or incorrect. I am thinking that I am going to be good this month and get myself 2 books. And I'll tell you why I have to get myself 2 books. One, it's because I want to get Ruthless Vows, which is an add-on. It is the sequel to Divine Rivals, which I adored. You'll get a full review of that in my January wrap-up. But there was a partial review in my book of the month review of 2023 of all the books I bought from there, which you can go watch if you'd like. But I really want to get that. But here's the thing. I have 3 unread book of the month books. So if there isn't a main pick that I'm like crazy about, I think I'm going to be good. and not get any books this month and just put them on my TBR, anything that I'm interested in that's an add-on, because you can't get an add-on without a main pick. So I do have to pick one of the main picks, which I might. A ton of the books I talked about sounded fantastic. And so there's a very good chance there'll be a main pick that I really want to read, and that I'll get that, and I'll get Ruthless Vows. But I am really, really trying to be good, because I still have 3 unread, that I won't get more than 2 and maybe get 0. So right now I'm going to splice in me picking the books for February if they release them before February 1st, because I really want this video to come out before February 1st. I will give them until like 9 a.m. on February 1st. Otherwise, you'll see at some point in a video in February, I'll talk about what I picked. Good morning. It is January 31st. Book of the Month's picks just came out, but the bad news is, I'll refresh it one more time. Book of the Month's website's not working right now, but their app was working on my phone, but I used my phone to record. So I took notes so I could tell you about the books that were picked and how many I got right in my guesses. I'm so sorry I look so tired right now. I was literally up from 1:30 to 4 in the morning last night because I woke up at 1:30 because a skunk had skunked our house, which happens sometimes. And then about 30 minutes after that, my daughter woke up with a nightmare and needed to be soothed for about an hour. And it's just, it was a long night. But let's talk about books. The first pick was Ready or Not by Cara Bastone. I wrote this really fast, so my handwriting's terrible. And after I posted the video, a YouTube user, Sarah, commented she thought that might be one of the clues. As soon as she said it, I was like, I can't believe I missed that, because my library friends had literally been talking about that book all week. But I don't know why. For some reason, I thought maybe it was coming out in March. I don't know. The second pick is The Mayor of Maxwell Street by Avery Cunningham, and that's historical fiction. The third is The Resort by Sarah Ox, and that's a thriller, and it's a debut. Fourth is The Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli, and that's a fantasy. Fifth is Kristen Hanna's The Women, which I did guess correctly. That's a historical fiction. And sixth is The Foxwife by Yang Zichu, which I also guessed correctly, which is a historical fantasy. So I was very proud of myself for getting 2 right. Little surprised I was completely wrong about the Allie Hazelwood. And actually, I don't even know if I figured out which one of those was that clue. The red and black. I don't know. Maybe The Mayor of Maxwell Street. Did that have a red and black cover? I can't remember. Okay, so there were also some add-ons that I'll really quickly tell you about. Good Material by Dolly Alderton, which is a lithic. Neighbors and by Diane Oliver, which is a short story collection. The Disappearance by Natasha Lester, which, I didn't write that whole title. It's The Disappearance of Someone. That was a historical. Family by Lori Frankel. That was a contemporary fiction. And Hard by a Great Forest, I think. I'm sorry, I wrote this so bad. Hard or Heard by a Great Forest by Leo. Last name begins with a V and is extremely long, and I'm not going to try and read my handwriting. Basically, immediately I read all those picks. You can see the Book of the Month website is still loading. They put that pizza picture up when they are. And I narrowed it down to The Foxwife by Yang Zichu and Heartless Hunter by Kristen Ciccarelli. And I just read, they're both over 400 pages. So I was a little like bummer because I've just not been like a long reader lately. So I went to both their Goodreads. They both have great reviews. And The Foxwife is exactly 400 pages and The Heartless Hunter is 416 pages. So it's not like either of them are like 490 pages or like 550. So they're very close in that. So then I read the sample pages, and I decided to go with The Foxwife because the sample pages are just so beautifully written. Not to say The Heartless Hunter are not beautifully written, but that's also a series. And I feel like lately I just haven't been wanting to read fantasy series. I've been wanting to read fantasy standalones. I like romance series a lot. I used to be like the queen of fantasy series, but I don't know. I think it's because I don't just read fantasy anymore, because I read a lot of other genres. Sometimes I feel like I can't commit to a series that's going to be 3 books long. That's going to be like over 1,200 pages total to read. And also, I don't want to read a book that's going to have like a crazy cliffhanger, and then I'm going to have to wait like 18 months to figure out what happens next. So I'm going to get The Foxwife, and I'm going to get Ruthless Vows as my add-on, which I put in my cart the second I finished Divine Rivals last month, or this month still. It was the beginning of January. So I'm getting 2 fantasies. One of them is young adult though, but that seems good because I was looking at the Book of the Month picks that I haven't finished yet. And I'm almost done with Northwoods. I'm probably going to finish it today. And then I have The Fury to read by Alex Michaelides, which is a thriller. And Northwoods is a crime fiction. And then I also have This Spells Love by Kate Robb, which is fantasy, but it feels like contemporary. I'm sorry, it's romance, but it's like contemporary fantasy romance because there's like a little bit of magic in it. And that's all she wrote. Look at me being such a good job and only getting 2 books. So yeah, if I picked books, I hope I was good and only picked 2. Thank you for hanging out. This is my February TBR. I hope there was something on it that was interesting to you. If there's something on it that you've already read and love, please let me know in the comments. Also, you can tell me about what you're excited to read for February. Are you a big romance reader in February? Or are you like, I think a lot of people still like to read like a lot of thrillers in February. We are having really unseasonable weather here. We usually are like under a lot of snow and having frigid temps, but it's in the 40s today, which is crazy. So I'm feeling more like it's the end of February, not the end of January, and I'm sure we'll get another cold snap / foot of snow this month. And those wintry thrillers can always be fun to read on those kind of days. If you've made it this far and you don't want to write words to let me know you did, please give me some sort of heart emoji. Pick whatever color you want. I read something once on Twitter that said like everybody has a certain color heart that isn't red that's their favorite. And actually mine was always green, but I've gotten really into the black heart lately. So with that, I will say goodbye, and I hope you're in the middle of a good book, about to start reading a good book, or about to start writing a great book. I'll see you soon.